Okay, we'll call to order the Raymore Parks and Recreation Board meeting for Tuesday, January 28, 2020. Can I get a roll call, please?
Member Collier.
Present.
Member Harris.
Present.
Member Howdy Show.
Present.
Member Manson.
Present.
Member Supple.
Present.
Member Williamson.
Present.
Chairman Troutman.
Present.
Member Bartow is absent.
Okay, I'll stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. Next, we'll move on to personal appearance. Tonight, it's my pleasure to have Councilperson Jay Holman step up to the podium, please.
Good evening, and thank you, Mr. Chair and honored members of the Parks Board. I had made a suggestion to the Chair and to Mr. Mustine to honor Tom Reagan for his service to the city and the Parks Board for the work he's done with the futsal program over the past 4 years, and they thought that was a pretty good idea. And since we had these things made, it seemed like a pretty good item to provide him tonight. And they went a step further and asked me, since I had been working with him as his co-coach for the last I think 4 to 5 years, to kind of talk a little bit about that, and so I agreed to do so. And normally I like to speak off the cuff, but tonight's a special occasion and requires prepared remarks, in my opinion. President George H.W. Bush is quoted as saying, "Any definition of a successful life must include service to others." Tom Reagan has lived by that mantra for a very long time. He has been involved in service to others since before I knew him. In addition, he has not defined his service to others by borders, having at a minimum helped many people in both Raymore and Belton in this area. These are just the good works that he's done that I know about. Tom called me about 4 or 5 years ago wanting to continue to offer opportunities to young people who wanted to play futsal during the winter months when it's too cold to get outside, and he had been coaching for a number of years. In fact, when Tom coached, he usually had more than one team at a time during the Belton Club's Winter Futsal League. And having recently severed ties with the KC Prime Soccer Club, he could no longer count on them to extend their insurance coverage to these practices. He had been able to secure a gym because he's a member of the district here, but needed insurance for them to allow that to happen. And he wanted to know if I had an idea, and I told him I might, and I made a call to Mr. Mustine, who within about, I think, a day or two signed off on what is now your 4th or 5th year of futsal programming, which has been very successful for the city. In fact, Chair Troutman has been helping me out as a co-coach since we started this season in November. And so we got a lot of excited kids that are playing and having a good time. Tom willingly took on the under 12 participants in this program, which really weren't part of the original plan. We had a team, and so we could basically say, we'll bring these kids on. We're not charging any fees to coach. The gym won't cost you anything. The city can basically create the programming and then charge the kids a fee that's appropriate through the Rec Track program, which is what they did. And then they added in the under 12 program, and we willingly took those kids on. Beginning that first year, I think we had 3 or 4, if I remember right, and they got to play with the older kids, which we learned they really enjoyed. You'd think they would get a little intimidated by that, but they don't. Tom never took a dime at any time for all the work that he put in. In fact, he bought his own futsal balls, his own pennies, and his own cones and other equipment to make this happen, which we're still using today. Tom is getting ready to relocate with his family down to the Joplin area for his children to pursue their higher education in the medical profession. So I thought it was kind of a now or never moment, because I don't know, I'm sure Tom will visit us in the future, but I don't know exactly when it's going to be back. So I thought tonight was a perfect moment to do this. Tom was there every Friday night for 3 to 4 months every year that we did this. And he even got his own children, both of them involved in the coaching of the program, which were really great with the younger kids. It has been my experience in life that nothing happens unless someone really, really cares about something a whole lot. It just doesn't. I can tell you that Tom Reagan cares, and the recognition that he is about to receive tonight couldn't be given to a more deserving citizen. Thank you, sir.
Tom, will you come on up, please? Do we have any questions or comments for Tom while they're taking swell pictures?
Thank you very much.
So,
With your
yes, thank you.
indulgence, sir, I'd like to have comments from Mr. Reagan himself.
Pardon me? Thanks a bunch. I mean, I'm flabbergasted when Jay told me this, and thanks.
Thank you. And thank you to Tom and your family. I know as most of us up here have coached at some point in time, and obviously we volunteer, it's an on-taking for the full family. So we certainly understand that, and thank you from the bottom of our hearts for what you've done. Have been lucky enough to help with the program, and it's on solid ground, and that's because of you, so thank you. Next, we'll move into our consent agenda. We need acceptance of the minutes from the October 22nd, 2019 Park Board minutes.
Mr. Chairman, I propose that at this time that we accept the proposed consent agenda as presented for the minutes on the Park Board meeting in October 22nd, 2019.
A second.
Okay, hearing a first and second, any modifications? Melinda?
Okay, on page 3, it has member Sapola instead of member Coyer multiple times. So we need to adjust that. Do you see that? There's at least 2 or 3 times there.
Yes, I see it.
Okay, so it starts
Yep.
out okay, and then,
Right. Page 3 and 4 corrections.
They'll be corrected, okay.
Yes.
Any others? Okay, hearing no others, we will ask for a vote approval with those corrections. All those in favor? Passes 7-0. Moving on to staff reports, I'll pass it on to Director.
Thanks, sir. I will ask Superintendent McLean for a recreation report.
Thank you, sir. First off, before I get into the report, I would like to highlight that we do have recreation staff here this evening. First, I'd like to introduce Corinne Doubt, our new recreation coordinator, if she'd like to stand and wave. So if you guys stop in, see her, she is now taking over all of the recreation programming, so summer camp, special events, she's really hit the ground running. If you want to speak to her a little bit afterwards, if you have wonderful ideas, feel free to give those to her. So anyway, she's looking forward to it. She's having fun. She's really hit the ground running, so we want to welcome her. I also want to introduce Tyler Cheney. He is interning with us this year, or this semester. He is currently at UCM, and he is in sports media. So he's working underneath the athletic coordinator, Todd Brennan, really getting involved with the sports side of things because that's where his true passion is. So we welcome him, and you will be probably seeing him at future meetings throughout the semester, as it's part of his requirements to get a whole gamut realm of how the Parks Department operates and how his future could be seen through different eyes. So anyway, so we welcome him as well. And then at this time, before we get into the full report, I'd like to ask Athletic Coordinator Todd Brennan to come up and give a report on basketball, because we have seen some major changes in basketball this year.
Thank you, Superintendent McLean. As Superintendent McLean stated, just want to give you a quick update on the current 2020 basketball season. We have seen a growth this year. We are currently heading into the third weekend of basketball games this upcoming Saturday. Compared to last year, we had 198 kids registered from kindergarten through the 8th grade basketball divisions. This year, those numbers have increased up to 330 total kids in the basketball program. That does not include the tiny basketball program, where we also saw an increase, tiny basketball program that we offer to 3- and 4-year-olds. Last year, we had 33 total kids registered, compared to this year, where we've got 42 kids taking part in the tiny basketball program.
Are there any questions for Athletic Coordinator Brennan?
Brian?
Did you say you went from 198 to 330?
Yes, we did. The Ray-Pec Basketball League that the school offers in the fall did not offer it this previous fall here, so we've seen a little bit of an increase from that.
Oh, yeah, a little bit. So my question is this: I know we've added one indoor facility, and so how are we handling that? How are we handling the extra space we obviously need?
Basically, we're in the schools more. Last year, we were probably in the South Middle School till about 1 o'clock. We used the auxiliary gym and the main gym out there. This year, we are out there from 9 a.m. to 5 p.m. in both gyms, including the rack, where we start 9 a.m. and we run till about 5 p.m.
Any other questions? Melinda?
So are we doing anything others or more advertising? Are we doing anything differently that's a pretty substantial growth, so.
Yeah, I think we're doing about the same amount of advertising that we've done in previous years. I think word of mouth, because we have seen those tiny programs over the last several years continue to grow. So we've seen an increase there that's building into our rec programs.
Those numbers not included in that 330? Or was
No, the 330 did not include the tiny basketball programs this year. That's where the additional 42, if you add those in, we're at 372 total kids from tinies through to 8th grade.
Ryan?
I've coached in the Ray-Pec basketball league, and another parent and I had already signed up as coaches and had already talked to Scott, who ran that program, and it wasn't until they announced that wasn't going to be a program. So I do know a lot of families that once they found out that the Ray-Pec program wasn't happening, they didn't get converted over and sign up for the Raymore Parks and Rec. So I would expect it to even grow more, because there was a lot of people that just decided not to play. We didn't end up playing this year. My daughter didn't, and a lot of kids didn't. But I think if they continue not to do the Ray-Pec program, you're going to see another increase next year, because I think only a small, maybe half, jumped on the wagon real quick enough to get on to this program rather than the Ray-Pec program. But I think it was, 130 roughly increase. I think that was only a percentage of what probably could be again next year. So just as a heads up. I know at least 5 or 6 kids that wanted to play this year that didn't get a chance to play.
Anyone else? I have a question. Do we have anything in place for the Kobe Bryant Memorial? Like, are we painting the courts, or have you come up with anything?
It actually has been discussed throughout the league that this upcoming Saturday, every game will start, each team will start with 24 points.
I like it a lot. very innovative. Very good. Thank you.
Thank you.
Mr. McLean.
Okay, so to continue on with the recreation report real quick, would like to state that Superintendent Rulo, myself, and Athletic Coordinator Brennan did meet with the Grand Slam Tournament Director today, which he is Randy Bates is his name, and he is the one that has held most of our baseball tournaments throughout the summer. So we did our initial meeting today, worked on getting dates and lining up the 2020 season. So they are very excited, really wanting to get this rolling and hoping for a little bit drier year than this last year. We do have other meetings set up for the rest of the week with USSSA and some other ones too. We have started negotiating the USSSA state tournament for machine pitch this year, which is the one we held last year. So we will be discussing on expanding on that particular tournament with USSSA coming up later this week. Also wanted to highlight that coming up here very shortly, next Friday, is the Valentine's Ball. We are hosting that this year at the gymnasium at the RAC. We did move that because we have a wedding reception rental at Centerview, so we're going to try some new things, but as Chairman Troutman can attest, we can run a dance out there. So we are looking forward to that, and Coordinator Dowd is getting everything finalized on the last minute details of that, but we are pretty much ready to go for that event. So please come out and join if you would like to with the daughters. And then finally, we are, as Coordinator Brennan discussed, we are in the middle of our winter sports season, but we are already taking full registrations for recreational soccer, volleyball, baseball, softball, and competitive baseball as well at this time. So all those are open and gearing up and preparing for the mad start to March. So at that concludes staff report. At this time, I'd be willing to entertain any questions.
Any questions for Superintendent McLean? Seeing none, thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Director?
I'll ask Superintendent Rulo to do a parks report.
Thank you. I have submitted a written report also, but I wanted to hit on a few items. Just to let you guys know that staff has been getting all our equipment lined up, getting it ready to take it in, get winterized, so we're ready for the season and not get caught behind the 8 ball right up front. We're also getting quotes for the equipment that's supposed to be traded in this year. So far, those have come in very nice. Hopefully, the rest of them will come in cheaper than what we thought also. I also wanted to just give a quick update on Eddie Gomez, my maintenance 2 worker that got hurt. He's still out right now. He's going crazy at home. Can't wait to get back. He did see his surgeon last Thursday. He goes back tomorrow. The surgeon likes the way everything is healing up, but still hasn't made a decision on when he can come back yet. The last I heard, Eddie said that the doctor didn't want him as of last week on his leg more than 30 minutes at a time. So I don't want to estimate a time he'll be back, but hopefully tomorrow after his appointment we'll know a little bit more, and we will keep you all updated on that. So with that, I can answer any questions.
Any questions for Superintendent Rulo? Josh?
Is the ice skating rink open, or how is that coming along?
The ice skating rink, it's a good question, Josh. We did get the ice all the way up to where it needed to be, frozen. Yesterday it hit 40 degrees and sun, and when I went home there was a pool of ice on top of it. It obviously froze overnight. We went in, we shoveled everything off of it this morning. Not sure what the weather's going to do tonight, but as of Thursday morning, when the rest of the crew is here, not on snow duty, we plan on putting the cover on it because we have 40s and 60s degree weather till next Tuesday. Come that time, we will take the cover back off. We did get the skates delivered last week. Staff has built racks for them, so they just need to be taken up to the station house, and hopefully, you know, we'll get a month of cold weather, and we'll be able to utilize the skate rink. Just been a crazy winter, kind of like a crazy summer, and you know, hopefully, we have talked a little bit about trying to maybe put blinds up on the east side, so when the sun's coming in every morning, that it's not sitting there baking the ice, and because that's where it mainly starts, and once you get a little puddle, it just keeps growing. So that's up in the air. So.
Anyone else? Melinda?
Okay, so I read that there was 150 trees that we got donated from Lowe's, correct? That you guys chipped up or something?
Oh, yeah.
Okay. So do you guys use that for mulch then around the area? Is that what that's?
Well, actually, the Boy Scout groups, I do not have what troop number it is. I can find that out. They actually do a recycled tree drop with our help. It's actually at our shop. They come in. What the Boy Scouts do is they take just a hand saw, because they can't use any motors or anything like that, and they cut the limbs off. They leave the limbs with us. They actually use the trunks for all their campouts and everything throughout the year. And then we take the limbs and we'll run it through the chipper, and we use that for, we got several different types of mulch that we'll use, and that's kind of our junk mulch that we use a lot around the disc golf course where places get real muddy and stuff. So, yeah.
I read that and I was like, I wonder what we're doing with that. So thanks.
Any other questions? Thank you. Director?
Thank you, sir. Just a couple items here in addition to my written staff report. Last work session we had, we went over our VERP program. Just a follow-up with that is the 4 vehicles have been ordered and are in production now, so we should receive those late spring, early summer on those vehicles. That included the SUV for the administrative staff, 2 half-ton trucks for Steve, and 1 of the 3/4-ton trucks with the dump bed for Steve's guys. So those have been ordered. CIP project updates. Big week next week at TB Hanna as the concession stand building is being delivered and installed. So Steve and John have done a great job this week of coordinating with all the parts and the players that have to be there for that particular installation and delivery. That's kind of the peak of the hill for that project. After that, we feel like it's downhill, and it's, you know, then it's normal stuff. But that's the one we've been working toward getting to, and so that should be delivered on Monday and installed, buttoned up by Wednesday, and then we move on to the spray ground and the playground area. So just a quick update on that one. We got a couple contracts right now out to bid. One is contract mowing. I know we as a board have discussed specifically contract mowing, what that would look like if we were to do that, especially for the municipal circle area and a couple of the high profile areas in our parks. So we did take those areas discussed, and we've got that out to bid. That's no guarantee that we're going to do that, but we don't know until we see what kind of a pricing that is. So I'll keep the board updated on that, but that is a joint effort with city administration, not just parks. The fireworks contract for the fireworks display is now out. We've exhausted our 3-year contract, so that goes back out to bid this year. The same guidelines are in place where it's the Saturday before July 4th, and with a rainout day the following day. We anticipate having some pretty good displays and dollar figures associated with that, with those dates, just like we did before, which is why we changed it. And the Arboretum light replacement was one of our CIP projects. That's out to bid. We have pre-bids for that next week. So got a lot of stuff going on. Not to mention we got 2 playgrounds under construction at Memorial Park and at Recreation Park. So it's a busy winter. We do have a full-time job opening as a park maintenance 1, where Haley Rule, our Parks Maintenance 1/horticulturist. She moved to Texas, so that position is currently open. Steve and I we go through applications and are preparing for interviews, but it's open till filled. So looking forward to filling that need, especially with Eddie being out, being down two folks, full-time folks, is we're strapped anyway. When you're down by two, it gets a little tighter. So, and one last thing, I did attach a link for the Missouri Parks and Recreation magazine. I know you guys got it, but Hawk Ridge Park did make the front cover and a nice write-up inside the magazine, and we'll be attending. Steve, myself, and Corrine will be attending the conference in the end of February next month. And that concludes staff report.
Any questions for the director? Ryan?
Yeah, I saw a post that came out today that the Raymore Arts Commission has put out a call for artists for Hawk Ridge. How's that process going to work? Is it still going to be similar to the concession stand where Raymore Arts Commission has full leeway to do what they want, or are we going to be able to sit down and approve and look at what they're talking about?
So the process doesn't change. What it does now that it's, and I'm glad you mentioned that. I had on my notes, I forgot to mention that. The Public Art Committee, which is a subcommittee of the Arts Commission, they're the ones who put the call out for artists, and that's what it is right now. It's a call out for artists, so it's nowhere close to the final product. It's this, they're selecting the person they want to work with. Those public art committees are open meetings, so our involvement as a board or you individually would be to attend those meetings. If you're interested in that, I would definitely recommend you make sure you get on their notifications, just like we have notifications for our meetings. That's the best way to attend and be a part of that process. Formally as a board, the process is we have provided them the location and the space. The process and the selection is on their part, so that is what process is. And I can, if you would like, as those meetings come, I find out about those meetings, I can send a notification on that if you're interested.
Anyone else? Thank you, Director. We have no unfinished business, so we will move into new business. Director?
Thank you, sir. Tonight I want to kind of unveil a plan of action that I know for those of you who were here when I was hired as the director, I mentioned this several times within my interview process, and that is to move our department towards being an accredited agency within the United States. That is no small undertaking. You can tell because I will be here 5 years in March, and we're just now getting to it. There's just a lot of work involved. But the idea behind being accredited, and a tribute to our Public Works folks, they just went through that process. It's a lot of work, but it makes such a huge difference in what we do every day and the recognition that we get on a national level. The amount of travel that I do in trainings and the folks that I know nationally, this just gives us credibility as a department and as a city. So what I've done is the accreditation process for Parks and Recreation agencies is through NRPA, which is the National Recreation Park Association, Commission for Accreditation of Park and Rec Agencies. There's a whole protocol and a process to go through there. One of the reasons why I really haven't pushed for this is a requirement is to have a parks master plan. You as a board know that we don't have that master plan in place, but as a city, we are embarking on creating a comprehensive master plan for the city this year, and each sub-chapter is, so to speak, a department. So our Parks Master Plan will be a sub-chapter of that. So by the end of the year, we hope to be well on our way to having that finished. So now's the right time to start implementing this process. I know I'm going to talk a lot, so if you got questions, just stop and ask me. I put in my staff report a little bit of what the benefits are for accreditation. I don't think that you have to argue for that status. Hard to do. I think the biggest thing that you have to argue for is the amount of work that it is. Is it really worth the work? If I didn't feel like it wasn't worth the work, I wouldn't be sitting here pushing for it, plain and simple. When we had our visioning session almost a year ago, last February, we talked about that, and I think Member Harris was even said, "What's stopping us? Why not go for it?" So here we are. I'm laying out a plan tonight. There's no action item really, other than if you are adamantly opposed against it, I would recommend you speak your mind, make a motion, and see if you can get some momentum and stop this. Otherwise, really all we're doing is putting policies and procedures in place that benefit us as a city. When you go through and you look at those list of policies and procedures, that list I gave you, most of them are already completed. They're just underneath the Human Resources Manual and under the umbrella of the City of Raymore. Those qualify for us because we follow those. So a lot of it is just paperwork and logistics on my part, kind of coordinating that effort. By doing so, I've provided a checklist of how we'll keep track of that. What is important for you guys to know is over the course of, I would say, 24 months, that's a conservative number, but it's probably a little bit aggressive too, knowing the size of staff that we have and as much is going on. This is kind of one of those side projects that we'll be bringing to you month to month, but we'll be going through the policies we have in place and drafting new policies that meet the criteria for accreditation. So that is the plan I'm laying out. I don't really have at this point a protocol of what I'm going to do in terms of write down the list. I don't know yet. I got to get into that. What I do know is that I have a checklist in place, and within that checklist it talks about having electronic copies being approved by the board and or city council if it needs to, hard copies on file, which are, all these things are required anyway, a short narrative of what that policy does, and then notes of when we passed it, things like that. But as a policies and procedure board initiated by the state and directed by the city council, this is exactly what you guys are brought together to do, and so that's what we're going to do. We're going to do a comprehensive evaluation of all of these things. It's going to do nothing but help us in our master plan, and I hope you guys are on board and look forward to doing this. Once this is in place, the master plan's done, we're literally a checklist away of applying for accreditation, and that would be something I'd be very proud of if we were able to obtain that. Even if not, having these policies and procedures in place just makes us better anyway. So that concludes staff report. Happy to answer any questions on the process and the reasoning why.
Any questions for the director? Brian?
Yeah, Director. So I've been through SMARTS. We got some audits, and they're basically, is this an audit process of your procedures, or is this a list of these are the procedures we want you to follow to hit this? So ISO's that way, right?
Okay. So within the CAPRA, what this is a list of policies, procedures that they expect or that they have designated as being accredited organization. Within that list, if you look back, my copy is colored, so there are some that are bold or in red ink. Those are the required ones. You have to have those. The other ones are recommended policies. So like to be accredited, you have to have the ones in red or the bold. In 5 years, when you become reaccredited, you have to have the rest of them in place. So it's a kind of a two-step process. Accreditation doesn't happen once. It's every 5 years you got to go through this process. Once you've done it, it's really just a matter of, dotting I's, crossing T's every 5 years, making sure you're up to date. The audit process, what we're going through now is a self-check, a self-audit, making sure we have them in place. When we go through the accreditation process, they bring in people from all over the country and they audit your department, a non-biased audit, and they go through these things. They read the policies, they make sure the policies are up to snuff with what the standards are, but they guide you through all that. By the time you get to that point, you've had several interviews. When we go to our national conferences, I'll be sitting through classes on how to go through that process, but we're a long way from that right now. Right now, it's getting the bold required items down.
And that's just to say you have a policy. The page 17 doesn't say your policy should be this, right? Okay.
Yeah, there's no rules in there stating what the policies have to. That's all dictated by your local municipality or organization, whatever you work for. They're just saying that these policies are required. Means and methods are up to us.
Anyone else? Thank you, Director.
Yes, sir.
Next, we'll move on to public comment. Seeing none, we'll move forward. We'll go to board member comment, and I will start with Brian.
I have nothing this evening.
Okay. Ryan?
Go Chiefs. That's it.
Melinda?
I just wanted to tell Tom, thank you again. I love futsal. My son plays soccer, and even though he hasn't been out to Raymores futsal, still, if you haven't seen futsal, it is so much fun. It is so fast-paced. It is just a good, fun time just to even watch. So if your kid plays soccer, I encourage you to go out and check it out. But anyway, thanks to Tom for bringing that here, and I appreciate that. So that's all I have.
Josh?
I have nothing, thank you.
Chanda?
I have nothing, thank you.
Bill?
Yes. First off, I want to thank Councilman Holman for doing the presentation tonight. It was timely and well-deserved. Thank you. And I also want to welcome the new staff members. I'm sure you're going to find this excellent working relationship with the board. In fact, with any luck, you won't have to deal with us at all. And so with that, I have nothing further to say on that. Thank you.
Thank you. Well, it looks like Bill read my notes, so we'll move on. That covers everything I had. Again, thank you, Councilman Holman, for bringing this to our attention. I think it's well-deserved. We have many people that help us out. We need to be constantly looking forward at rewarding them with at least a thank you for the work they did. Again, staff, welcome. We appreciate you all. We appreciate the mayor, city council, and especially the citizens for what they do for us on a daily, weekly, monthly basis. So, yes, Melinda.
Director Mustine, I actually have one question, if we could back up slightly. What is the annual cost on the accreditation on that? Is there initial cost and then there's an ongoing cost, or?
There's no annual cost. It's there's an initial application fee, and then the cost when you go through the accreditation process. When we're bringing in the interviewing crew, you pay for their lodging and their meals and stuff for that 2 to 3 day process. But that's typical of any accreditation process in any organization or field of business. So it's really just about every 5 years when you have to redo it. But the annual cost isn't anything. I might have to backtrack and eat some crow on that if there's a cost to be a member of CAPRA, but I don't know because we're members of NRPA, and that might, satisfy that. But I can find out for you. We won't be becoming members until we've gone through this portion of it anyway, so it'll be a while before we have to do that.
But it's a minimal.
Yeah, and it's like $100, $150 something. I mean, it's very, very minimal in the big picture of things. It's their travel and their lodging is the big ticket item when you go through that process.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, with that, we'll move into adjournment.
I move we adjourn.
Second.
Okay, hearing a first and second. All those in favor? Passes 7-0. We're adjourned.